new headway. Operating made a book. My name is LOU. We have Paradise Lost. What can be done to stop tourism destroying the object of its affection? Maurice Chandler reports on the boom in world travel. Mr. Paul.
Yes?
Please read paragraph 1 for us.
Okay. On the sun-soaked Mediterranean island of Mallorca, the locals are angry. Too late. In the last quarter of the 20th century, they cashed in on foreign nationals, mainly Germans, wanting to buy up property on their idyllic island. Suddenly, it occurred to Mallorcans that the island no longer belonged to them. They don't deny tourism's vital contribution to the local economy. The industry has transformed Mallorca from one of Spain's poorest parts to the richest in per capita income. But the island's 630,000 inhabitants are increasingly convinced that the 14 million foreign visitors a year are far too much of a good thing. Water is rationed, pollution is worsening, and there is no affordable housing left for them to buy.
Aha. What does it mean, rationed?
It means you are only allowed a certain amount.
And what is pollution?
Pollution can come from various forms. Pollution from the sea, sewage from the sea, pollution in the skies from transport, from factories, like the smoke and stuff that goes up into the air.
What does it mean if I call something idyllic?
It means very beautiful, very wonderful, very appealing to the person. Something a bit like heaven, I suppose.
Very good, and please read our next paragraph.
On the other side of the world, 250 Filipinos were recently evicted from their homes. Their lakeshore village of Ambalong was cleared by hundreds of police who demolished 24 houses. The intention of the authorities was to make way for a major business venture, not oil, logging or mining, but an environmentally friendly holiday resort.
What does it mean to be evicted?
It means to be forcibly removed from one's home.
And what does demolished mean?
It means when they literally flatten something.
And what is a venture?
Well, a venture is something you go into, possibly with other people, with the hope of having a mutually advantageous profit from your idea or your plan.
Yes, and now we have a growth industry. Please read this paragraph for us.
Tourism is the world's largest and fastest growing industry. In 1950, 25 million people travelled abroad. Last year, it was 750 million. The World Tourism Organization estimates that by 2020, 1.6 billion people will travel each year, spending over $2 trillion US.
Very good, and now we have the effects of tourism. Please read our next paragraph.
To millions of tourists, foreign destinations are exotic paradises, unspoilt, idyllic, and full of local charm. But many of the world's resorts are struggling to cope with relentless waves of tourists whose demands for ever more swimming pools and golf courses are sucking them dry.
Yes, in this context, what do we say when we say sucking them dry?
Well, it means they're taking more and more land from the locals.
Okay. And now we have another paragraph. Please read for us.
The issue is massive and global, says Tricia Barnett, Director of Tourism Concern, a charity which campaigns for more responsible approaches to travel. Tourists in Africa will be having a shower and then will see a local woman with a pot of water on her head, and they are not making the connection. Sometimes you'll see a village with a single tap, when each hotel has taps and showers in every room.
Very good. And what is a tap?
A tap is where the water comes out of this object in a bathroom. The American word for tap is faucet.
Aha. Please read the next paragraph.
The problem is that tourists demand so much water. It has been calculated that a tourist in Spain uses up 880 litres of water a day, compared with 250 litres by a local. An 18-hole golf course in a dry country can consume as much water as a town of 10,000 people. In the Caribbean, hundreds of thousands of people go without piped water during the high tourist season, as springs are piped to hotels.
Aha. What is piped water?
Water which comes from pipes. Well, it doesn't actually come from the pipe, but it is allowed free movement through a pipe into the bathroom.
Very good. And then we have in 1950, 25 million people traveled abroad. Last year was 750 million. Winners and losers, please read our next paragraph.
Where's that? The host country may not see many benefits. In Thailand, 60% of the 4 billion annual tourism revenue leaves the country. Low-end package tourists tend to stay at big foreign-owned hotels, cooped up in the hotel compound, buying few local products and having no contact with the local community other than with the waiters and the chambermaids employed by the hotel. Mass tourism usually leaves little money inside the country, says Tricia Barnett. Most of the money ends up with the airlines, the tour operators, and the foreign hotel owners.
Very good. And what is a chambermaid?
A chambermaid is a young lady, well, I don't know, she might not be young, but she will make up the bed in the morning. She will change the bed sheets, she will tidy up the bedroom, and that's her job, chambermaid.
Very good. And please read our next paragraph.
Where from?
These days, the industry.
These days, the industry's most urgent question may be how to keep the crowds at bay. A prime example of this is Italy, where great cultural centres like Florence and Venice can't handle all the tourists they get every summer. In Florence, where the city's 500,000 or so inhabitants have to live with the pollution, gridlock and crime generated by 11 million visitors a year, there's talk not only of boosting hotel taxes, but even of charging admission to some public squares. The idea is to discourage at least some visitors, as well as to pay for cleaning up the mess.
Very good. And what is gridlock?
This is when the traffic comes to a complete halt, and the cars just simply do not move.
Very good. And now we have the future. Please read for us.
For many countries, tourism may still offer the best hope for development. The Vietnamese are doing their best to open up their country, says Patrick Duffy of the World Tourism Organization. Iran is working on a master plan for their tourism. Libya has paid $1 million for a study. They all want tourists, and people like to discover ever new parts of the world. They are tired of mass tourism. Even if a country doesn't have beaches, it can offer mountains and deserts and unique cultures.
Very good. In this context, what do we mean by development?
They're talking about how tourism can improve the countries.
Very good. Please read the next paragraph.
Yet if something isn't done, tourism seems destined to become the victim of its own success. Its impact on the environment is a major concern. In hindsight, tourist organizations might have second thoughts about what exactly they were trying to sell.
Very good. And what is hindsight?
Well, if I knew what was actually going to have happened in the future, then I could have changed it. Hindsight is looking back on what actually occurred. Oh, well, it's like the future. I suppose it could be in the context of the future in the past, where you're trying to think of what to do and you take one course of action, and then you say, oh, in hindsight, I might not have done that. I think I would have done something different. But I didn't know that this would be the outcome.
Very good. Now we have one more paragraph here. Please read for us.
As Steve Maguire, a tourist consultant, says, tourism, more often than not, ruins the very assets it seeks to exploit, and having done the damage, simply moves off elsewhere.
Aha! And what does the word exploit mean?
It means to take advantage of a particular situation, to use it to your own advantage, as opposed to helping those locally. For example, in South Africa, as we know, for many years, South Africa had a system, a regime of apartheid, where blacks and whites were separated. And the whites managed to get the blacks to dig out the diamonds and all of the diamond mines. So they exploited the diamond market. They took advantage of the black miners who dug out the diamonds, and then the white managers would then sell the diamonds, giving the people that mined the diamonds a very minimum amount of money in comparison to the actual value of the diamonds that they were digging out.
Yes, I believe Cecil Rhodes was involved in that. Now, for poor countries, tourism may still offer the best hope for development. Now, we have, read the title and quotes in the article. What do you think the article will be about? Well, we know that already. What was this about?
This was about Paradise Lost.
Very good. We have which of the places in the pictures on page 19 are mentioned? Looks like that.
Venice. Venice was mentioned. Venice.
Uh-huh.
And
this may be somewhere in Africa.
yeah.
Venice.
Yeah.
This could be in Spain.
Oh, I see. The other one's Australia.
Australia.
That's Alice Springs. That's a religious area for the Aborigines. It's Ayers Rock.
And this final one I'm not familiar with. Can you identify it?
It looks like Greece to me.
Okay, very good. What is said about these different places in the article?
Which particular place would you like to talk about?
Talk about Venice. What is said about Venice?
Okay. Venice, they have to live amongst the garbage, I think it said, and it talks about that Venice can't handle all of the tourists, and the inhabitants have to live with the pollution, the gridlock, and the crime generated by 11 million visitors a year. I don't understand why they're saying that crime is generated by the visitors. I'm sure that crime is also generated by the people that live there.
I believe it was Florence, but okay. Now we have what other places are mentioned?
the Vietnamese, so Vietnam.
Vietnam, yes.
Libya was mentioned,
Okay.
I think. And Iran was mentioned.
Uh-huh.
Spain,
Uh-huh.
Philippines,
Yes.
Africa,
Uh-huh.
Caribbean.
Uh-huh.
That's all I can think of, really.
Thailand, I believe, is mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Does the article talk about any of the problems you discussed? What problems are mentioned in the article?
Well, as we just discussed, the pollution, the crime, stuff like that. Cleaning
Okay.
up, they have to clean up after people.
Very good. The author asks, what can be done to stop tourism destroying the object of its affection? What would Stephen McGuire's answer be?
Well, I don't see that there is a solution to the problem, actually. It all seems to be one big environmental mess and a major concern for everybody involved.
Okay. Now we have some other questions here. How is tourism destroying the object of its affection? Majorca and the Philippines.
Well, in the Philippines, they bought up all the property in the land, I think, in a particular village. And what was the other place?
Majorca.
Mallorca suddenly became owned mostly by the Germans. They realized they didn't own their own area because all the Germans had been buying up all the property. So, yeah, things change.
Okay. What are the statistics of the global tourist industry?
I don't know.
Statistics. Do we have the numbers in our article?
Well, it's a growth industry.
Okay.
In 1950, 25 million people travelled abroad. Last year it was 750 million.
Okay.
And the WTO, the World Tourism Organization, says that by 2020, 1.6 billion people will travel, spending over $2 trillion US.
Interesting. What are the effects of tourism?
Well, you know, the effects of tourism are that a lot of unspoiled places are suddenly becoming, well, they change, don't they, with tourists. When tourists come to unspoiled, idyllic areas, they suddenly you have these restaurants and hotels and discotheques and bars, attracting all different kinds of people.
And now we have who are the winners and losers.
Well, at the time, I suppose the winners are the tourists themselves, and the people that are making money from the tourists. And the losers are the villagers when they see their villages transformed into nightclubs and hotels.
And what are the possible future developments?
Well, future developments. We know the Vietnamese are trying to open up their country. Iran's working on a master plan for their tourism. I'd like to actually see what happens there, seeing as they are under the cosh of the revolutionaries. Libya has paid $1 million for a study because they want tourists. They all want tourists. Yeah.
And now we want to know about personal reactions. What is something in the passage that you didn't know?
Which passage?
Our passage on these 2 pages.
This passage here or this passage here? Or what about this one?
Our entire passage.
Well, the article on
Pages
Paradise Lost.
21.
What did I know about that?
What did you not know from that reading material?
I didn't know that hundreds of thousands of people go without piped water during the tourist season.
Interesting. What did you already know?
I knew that in Thailand, 60% of the $4 billion annual tourism revenue left the country, or it leaves the country.
Yes, everyone knows that. Now, is there anything you thought was very difficult? It must be really difficult for...
It must have been very difficult for the Filipinos who were recently evicted from their homes.
That must be difficult, yes. Do you find anything in the passage hard to believe?
Yes.
Anything specifically that you'd like to mention now that's hard to believe?
I think it's quite hard to believe that Libya paid $1 million for a study.
Uh-huh.
But there again.
And now, is there anything you wonder could be done to change something?
Oh, not really.
Okay. And is there anything you think is a shame in the passage?
Well, it's a shame that the issue is massive and global, because if people knew how to behave, we wouldn't even be having this conversation now.
Okay. Now, let's look over our words that are highlighted in the article. They cashed in on. What is it to be cashing in on something?
To make money from something, to profit from something.
Okay, and then we have too much of a good thing. What is that?
Well, you know, if you keep going to these holiday resorts and you just have everything you want and everything's nice and pleasant and wonderful, and suddenly you realise you're bored with it because you've had too much of a good thing.
Yes, and what do we get from relentless waves of tourists? What does that mean?
Well, it's when the tourists just keep coming and coming and coming. Like in Spain, the British tourists, they have a love of Benidorm. And I remember once that there was a comic night. The comedian said to the audience, do we have anyone here from Spain? And of course, Benidorm's in Spain, it's part of Spain. And one Spanish man, amongst all these hundreds of English tourists, shouted out, "Yes, hola!" And the comedian then said, "Welcome to England," which for me kind of summed it up, really.
Okay. And then we have low-end package.
A low-end package is when you don't pay very much. In Spain, what they have now, they have, you pay your air flights, you pay for your hotel, and it's called, it's all in. Everything's all in. So when you arrive at the hotel, you don't have to pay for anything. You can actually spend your whole 2-week holiday in that hotel, sitting by that pool. All the food is paid for. You've already paid for it. All the drinks, you can drink as much as you want. You can eat as much as you want. Well, when someone first told me this, I thought they were kidding. I thought that's not right. But apparently it's true. And I've since found that myself. I've never been on one of those low-end holidays. Because I wouldn't want to be stuck in the same hotel all the time.
Okay. And we have cooped up in the hotel compound. What does that mean?
Well, that's like what I just said, you know, if you're cooped up, you're stuck there. You can't get out of there. And it's these all-inclusive holidays.
Right.
Where you've prepaid everything. Is it? Yeah?
Sorry, very good. And now we have the victim of its own success. What does that mean?
Something can be so successful that in actual fact, it can be ruined by the numbers of people that go there.
Very good. And now we have might have Second thoughts, what does that mean?
We may reconsider our initial idea.
Very, very good. And finally, we have matching line A with line B. The boom, what?
The boom in world travel.
The boom in world travel, yes. We have tourism's vital.
Tourism's vital for development.
Vital for development, we have per capita.
Per capita income.
Income, we have a major business.
A major business contribution to the economy.
Or possibly venture. We
Oh,
have
yeah.
foreign.
A major business venture, yeah. Foreign destination.
Destinations, we have consume.
Consume as much water.
As much water, a prime.
A prime example.
Example or contribution to the
I think it's
economy.
example, a prime example.
The best help
The best hope for development.
for development. Very good. Once again, this has been a word from your upper intermediate book. My name is LOU. See you next time.